there are quite a few investors, angel investors, and others who are interested in making investment in these startups. Obviously, the promoters of startups would want their own valuation for new equity to be issued, because whatever they have formed with a lot of hard work cannot be given away to somebody for a nominal amount of cash. And they would also like to retain their own control on the company. And hence, whenever new equity is coming, new partners are coming, new venture capitalists are coming, the shares are issued at premium. Now, there are certain rules and regulations for issue of these shares getting premium, wherein startups don't fit in. And a lot of litigations are going on currently with these startups in respect of valuation of these shares. Hence, government decided that yes, this is the order of the day for startups, and they have no choice but to take premium for the investors, so that multiple returns are available to the investors. And hence, the rules are relaxed to the extent that once the startup issues the shares in the initial years to the investors, the premium amount would not be questioned. There are a lot of litigations going on in the court of law, and as promised by the finance minister on the floor of parliament, probably they would all be withdrawn if the new rules which are coming in place for doing KYC, kind of KYC for the people who have invested money in these startups at a premium are there too. There are some schemes which are getting floated. There are some views that are getting floated, but the government says that once the verification is done online about the genuineness of the investor, then no more questions would be asked, and the sorry, the manner in which these documents are to be submitted are all electronical, and hence there is no intervention of the tax officials, so that the any intervention from any other authorities are avoided. So let us see how it works, but the scheme as such appears to be a welcome change and welcome procedure, and this, to my mind, should work out, and all the startups who have worked very hard for quite a few years would be given this benefit, and um, number of litigations which are going on in at different forums in at different levels would also get reduced. That was as far as valuation of shares are concerned. Other than that, startups also have benefit under Section 54GB. It is basically for the people who are promoters of the startups, whereby, as we know, the 54 Section 54GB is already on the statute, whereby the promoter of the startup would be given exemption from the capital gains under certain circumstances if the house property, land or building is sold by him and the money invested in startup. So there are quite a few conditions attached to that, about the investment, about the um, eligibility of the promoters, the number of assets that they are holding, the time within which they have to invest it in the company, and also there are some conditions with respect to investment of these funds by companies before the return of the promoter gets due for filing. So all these conditions remaining the same, but this exemption is extended up for 2 more years, because it was getting completed, or the sunshine clause was there till 31/3/2019. That is extended for 2 more years. The one more benefit that is made available is about the conditions which was laid down for the startups for money which are invested in this manner by claiming exemption of 54 GB by the promoter and investing money in the startup. One of the conditions was that all the assets which are acquired by the startups from the funds made available from the promoter uh, cannot be sold for a period of 5 years. Now, as we know, the in this fast changing technology era, computers and software are not having the lifespan of 5 years. So, very logically, the period of exemption or period of holding those assets by the startup is reduced from 5 years to 3 years, and hence it's I mean I would treat this as a welcome change, and it was required because there is no life of asset, computer or its software, beyond 3 years. So these were the benefits which are granted to startups by the budget. We move on to the next benefit which is given on startups, and that is uh, the amount of shareholding that a person or the promoter is required to have in a startup. Under the existing provisions, which is there on the statute book, the person claiming exemption under 54GB was required to have at least 50% stake in the startup. This 50% stake is now sought to be reduced to 25%. So even if the promoter of startup invests up to 25% in the startup, by investing his capital gains in the new startups, then also these can be claimed. The benefit of Section 54GB can be claimed by the promoter. And now, next benefit, which is one more benefit and last benefit, and one important benefit which is given to the startups, is about carry forward of losses. As we know, the startups in the initial year would definitely have losses because they are trying with new innovative ideas and which is not accepted normally by the society, and they take more time in getting settled. So in initial years, there are always losses in the startups, but there are conditions for carry forward of those losses in the subsequent years and getting adjusted with the income when the startup starts getting earning income. Typically, what happens is that initially, when there are the promoters have floated the company and they have started running business, a couple of years would be into losses. Once these losses are recouped, people would start investing money in startups, whereby the shareholding or the stake of the promoters would come down, and the investors who are pumping in a lot of money would increase. So most of the time, what happens is that startups promoters would hold less than 51% of the voting rights. After a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, when they start making profits. But by that time, because of the existing provisions in Section 79 of the Income Tax Act, there are restrictions that whenever there is a loss incurred, whichever year there is a loss incurred, at least 50%, 51% of the shareholding of those years should be held by the current shareholders. So effectively 51% of the stake should remain with the promoters only. Now this condition is very difficult to be satisfied by the very nature of the business of the startups, and hence all the losses which startups were having in initial years are getting lost. There was no benefit made available to them. So now what they have sought to amend is that the shareholders which were there in the year in which the startup incurred the losses and the year in which the income is earned and these losses are required to be adjusted, all the shareholders which were there in the year in which the losses are incurred should be still the shareholders of the startup. In that event, it can be considered. So obviously, when promoters of the startups are there, they would start getting, new money, and their own stake would get diluted. But they continue to be the shareholders of the company. So long as they continue to remain as shareholders of the company, these losses can be adjusted. So this is also a very good benefit which is given to startups, and it can be a real boost to them. Now we go